Hi, and welcome to the Lowell Leaders Podcast. I'm Danielle McFadden, President of the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce. The Lowell Leaders Podcast gives us a deeper look into some of Lowell's most influential and respected leaders, many of which who I am lucky to call dear friends. In each episode, we'll explore many of Lowell's iconic institutions, thriving businesses, and amazing nonprofits, and get to know their leaders who are blazing the path and contributing to what makes the Mill City such an inspiring place to work, live, and play. And I'm so excited. This is the second time. I didn't turn the mics on the first time to have Karen Frederick, CEO of Community Teamwork, on with me today. How are you?
I'm great, Danielle. Thank you so much for having me. And that's quite an introduction for this podcast. And I really am honored to be part of it. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here. We have so much we can talk about. I want to first dive into a little bit about you personally, and then we'll talk about CTI.
That sounds fine. Good? Sounds fine.
Awesome. So can we start by talking a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, where you grew up, your family, all that fun stuff?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I haven't ventured too far. I was born in Lowell and grew up in Chelmsford. So I spent my whole first 18 years of my life in Chelmsford. I'm a graduate of Chelmsford High School, along with my mom and dad. I have a sister and two brothers. So, I'm a Westlands girl, and really proud of growing up there and the experience I had in schools in Chelmsford.
I can totally relate to not going very far. I didn't even leave the city I grew up in. Can you talk about a favorite childhood memory?
Sure. So, thinking about it, there's many things. I have a strong family. And one of the things I remember and think about a lot is our summer vacations, where we'd go to the Lake Champlain and to the city of Burlington. And that's where my grandmother grew up. And my mom was born in Vermont, so I had lots of cousins up there. And those summer vacations, with all of those people were just so exciting. And we thought, at the time it was a long trip to drive from Chelmsford to Burlington, Vermont. We thought, in our heads we were going to California. It was like a major trip, and it was just so much fun. And I really appreciated those experiences.
I love that. It's so funny, the perspective of when you're a kid and how long something can seem. Right. But you didn't have the iPads and all the stuff that kids are spoiled nowadays.
No, and I was the one who got car sick. So it wasn't a pleasant drive for the rest of my family because we often had to stop.
But worth it once you get there, right? Once
Absolutely.
You make the trip.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How would your friends and family describe you?
So let me see. It depends who you're talking to, right?
You can segment this question.
I know.
That's easier.
Let's see. My friends would say that I'm outgoing and talkative and driven, I think, is a good description. My sons would say that I think I'm funny. I'm not sure they think I'm funny, but they think I do, And I think also that I talk to everyone. And, for me, talking to people is how you learn things. And I've met so many interesting people in my life, in my career, just by striking up a conversation. So I do enjoy getting to know people and talking. So that is something. And I grew up as a kind of shy child. So
interesting.
Yeah, very different, as an adult than I was as a kid.
Huh. I wonder where that switch happened.
It's interesting because I think, I learned that if you don't speak up, you can kind of get overlooked. Yeah. And I think, I wanted to be, and I think my mother was very similar to me. She was, she would say she was an introvert, but she was an overcompensating one, right? Yeah. So she made herself kind of reach out to people and to do things like that. And that's where I learned a lot of my life lessons, from my family.
Yeah, interesting. Love that. This is actually a perfect segue, tell me about one or two of the most influential people in your life and how they impacted you personally or professionally, or both?
Sure. Yeah, I think about, that a lot and how, we as professionals can mentor people. And there is, in your personal life who influenced you and then in your professional life. So yeah, I'd love to talk about both. Certainly in my family life, it was my mom and my grandmother, who were both very strong women, who kind of let me learn that I could do anything, or I could do what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. And those are, strong lessons to learn. You know, my mom never got the chance to go to college, but she had a successful career as an executive assistant. But I think it always felt to her she was missing something. So for us growing up, you know, it was you are going to college. It wasn't even a question. It was just yes for the four of us growing up at home. It was, yeah, you're going to go to college. Of course you are, you know. So I think, you know, having her and seeing her push herself. And, you know, for me, you know, I loved learning and I loved school. So it was a natural fit anyway. And then my grandmother, who actually didn't work outside the home, you know, she stayed home and took care of the kids. And later in life, she got a part-time job. But I also thought she could do anything. And she'd say to me, you can do whatever you want to do, you know. You know, she would talk about, you know, women becoming able to vote and how important that was to be part of your community and to vote. Every time you can vote, you vote, right? So I think the lessons I learned from her, you know, even though she never drove, she didn't even manage her checkbook until her husband died, and then she did. Yep. And you know, she still seemed to me like somebody who could do anything. So I think having those people in my life, and she was the one who would say to us, you know, if you're not having fun, it's your own fault.
I love
Go make
that.
fun,
oh my
right?
Gosh.
So you kind of take those lessons in as you're growing up, and it shapes who you are.
Yeah.
You know. And then in my professional life, I certainly had a mentor who was a boss of mine, Pat Weber, who is now living in Florida. She really taught me how to manage, how to lead, how to be, you know, the kind of boss that I always wanted to be, and manager of people. You know, I think she taught me that you hire the very best people you can find, and if they're smarter than you, all the better, right? And I think people are often afraid to do that. They think, well, I'll look bad. But she was really clear, you know, nope, you'll look good, and you're in your job for a reason, you know. So I learned so many lessons about being a supervisor, about management, and just about, you know, how to be in the workplace from her. And then there were also people in the community who really, I knew wanted me to be successful. And I think made sure I was in the right places. And those were people like George Duncan and Sandy Wilson, people who really wanted to make sure I was going to succeed when I became the CEO of Community Teamwork. And I am so grateful to have them in my life, and for the lessons I learned from them, you know. For, you know, a woman coming up at the time I did, you know, most of the people when I became a CEO in the housing world were men. Most of the people in the community action world who were running the organizations were men. And very often women weren't wanted at the table, right? So being there and thinking, okay, I belong here, even though, you know, clearly some of these people don't want me here, could be tough. But I think that, you know, for me, knowing that there were people who wanted me to be successful, right, and who kind of led the way. I watch a lot and learn from watching people to be the kind of organizational leader. I looked for people who I could see their values and thought, that's what I want to be like. Yeah. So, you know, we're lucky here in this, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like in Lowell, everybody's always looking for the next generation of leaders, and what can we do to help?
That's right. And that's embedded in our work at Community Teamwork. We do a lot of work in leadership training, in succession planning, so that we are identifying people who want to move up in the field, who want to become the leaders. And I'll tell you, it's so satisfying to see that, and it's really wonderful to see people moving up in their careers.
It must be wild to think of how many people now are under you.
I know. Well, we have right now, I'd say we have about 560 employees.
Unbelievable.
In many different locations, doing great work. And it really is, to me, that's who Community Teamwork is, right? It's the great staff that we have who every day do amazing work.
How long have you been CEO?
So I've been CEO since 2003. But I've actually worked at Community Teamwork for most of my career. Yeah. I was pretty much out of graduate school 2 years. Wow. And I came right to Community Teamwork. I was coordinating the daycare program, which had 40 to 60 kids at the time and maybe 8 staff.
Oh my gosh.
So
no.
it's pretty amazing
Yeah.
the growth of the organization. And for me, it's been a place I stayed because I had opportunities.
Yep.
And I knew, that my bosses were looking for me to do more, right? So when I got bored, I'd write a grant and start a new program. I think I can do this, and I was encouraged to do that.
Yeah.
And that's really what I want for all of our staff, to feel that they can take some chances, take some risks, and grow. And that's how we all learn, and everything doesn't always work perfectly, as you know.
Yep.
And you just regroup and say, okay, what would we do different next time?
That's what I always say to my kids, like when they say something, I'm like, what's the worst that could happen?
That's right.
Usually it's not anything
almost
life-shattering, right?
That's right. That's right. Most of, you have to learn to take calculated risks and do things that are, within reason, and people can figure that out.
Yeah. If you could choose to have coffee with anyone, dead or alive, who would you choose?
So that's a good question. I'm trying to think.
You can pick a couple if you want.
All right. Well, yeah.
We have no rules in this
Okay,
podcast.
no rules. Can we make up our own rules?
Yes, we can make up our own rules.
See, that's why I like you, Danielle.
What's the worst that could happen?
That's right. So, because we're doing a lot of work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'd really like to have coffee with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I really would. I just think, given where we are and where we still need to go, and, when we talk about CTI, it's embedded in the work we do as a community action agency. So I really, I would love to just hear his voice, and all that he went through to make a difference in the world is just amazing against all the odds, right? And I think there's so much more we are doing, we still need to do, and so much change that still needs to happen. And the other one I think is Eleanor Roosevelt. I think I would love to sit down and talk with her, because she just seems like she would be so fascinating, right? It's an amazing life at a time, again, when women didn't have a lot of opportunities, and yet she was such a force. So I think that would be really interesting.
I love that.
It is, yeah. It's probably more too, but I'll talk, as I said, I'll talk to anybody, right?
Because I'll learn to anybody, and that's why I see at Brood Awakening all the time, right?
That's right. That's right. You see me talking at Brood Awakening,
at Brood Awakening, talking down the street. That's what I
right.
love about working downtown too. It's like you leave the garage and then you walk out and you never know who you're going to see.
That's right.
But you do have to time it. So if you have someplace you need to be, got to build in a little.
Well, as I
time,
am late for my first meeting in the morning, usually it's like, well, I ran into somebody and I could actually get some work done and I could catch up, and
And that's so true. At half the time, you're actually getting something done.
That's right. That's right.
When you're walking down the street and chatting. So we talked a little bit about this already, but what brought you to CTI to begin with, and then a little bit more about your path to becoming CEO.
Okay. Well, it is interesting. It was such a long time ago when I came to community teamwork. I had gotten out of graduate school, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I had been running a preschool in Milton for about a year. I was living in Braintree, and then I was a permanent sub in Newton, and they offered me a job teaching. And I thought, this isn't really what I want to do. This really isn't the path I think that I'm on. So I had seen an ad at Community Teamwork, and it was to run and organize a childcare program. And I thought, that sounds interesting. And it's in Lowell, and the city at the time had a lot of challenges. And so I took the job. And it was such an interesting time, because it was at a time when people were really looking for social change and looking to really grow things that helped people. Like women were entering the workforce in big numbers in the 80s, right? So we needed childcare programs to grow. And I fell in love with the mission of the organization. And I really believe that if you offer help to someone when they really need it, they're able to move forward and go on with their lives. And if you don't, it can quickly unravel. And it's why we see homelessness and you know, all the things that we see means to me that the right intervention and the right service wasn't there at the time when that person needed it. And in my own life, I had been working at Community Teamwork for not that many years. When I came, I had no kids. I had twins first. 2 years later, I had my middle son. And then 4 years after that, I had my fourth son. So 4 boys. And I became a single parent, which I did not expect.
Yep.
So it was a kind of awakening in life. I had just bought a house in Dracut, and I thought, I don't think I can stay here. I can't afford this on my salary and human services, which are, you know, were even worse at the time. It was just you were doing it for the mission and passion more than you were doing it for the money, obviously. Right. So I really had to think about where was I going. And while I was out on maternity leave, my boss, Pat, said, okay, you do know you're eligible for subsidized childcare. And I said, I had no idea. Never used a service in my life. I ran it, and I never thought that it was for me, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was for me. So my 4 children were enrolled, and she said, when you come back, you're going to run this division. And I'm like, really? I don't think I can do that. She goes, yes, you can. And that confidence really helped me see that I could do more, and I was on a path that I wanted to be on. I really thought around that time, I really want to do more. So I started teaching. I've taught at a few colleges and really tried to expand. And then I just became very committed to the mission and work of Community Teamwork. And as we've grown, we brought the WIC program in. We've started so many programs to help people. And I see every day people get that help and they move forward in their lives. And that's been a joy. I wake up every morning and want to go to work. I've never thought, you know, I hate work or I don't want to go. I really can say, I know it's such a blessing when you can say that, that I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been hard. I mean, our work is hard. Right now we're working in homelessness that is incredibly difficult because the challenges are so great. And yet, you know, when you do the work and try to find solutions, I think you get a feeling of satisfaction.
Sure.
And for me, you know, I moved to doing a lot of policy work, right? When you can help shape policies that work and that are meaningful and that help change people's lives, that is just the greatest feeling. So that's why we do a lot of policy work at Community Teamwork. It's not only about delivering the service, it's about how do we help the Commonwealth and the federal government operate programs that are truly what people need.
Yeah. And no one would know better than an organization like yours.
Exactly. Well, we do the work, you know. It's funny because, you know, when you do the work, sometimes people think, well, you just deliver this. It's like, well, we also help shape what it is and how it gets delivered and are constantly making improvements. And that's the other thing I love is like we're always trying to do better.
Yeah. And based on what you're seeing and hearing and doing on a daily basis.
That's why we do every 3 years, we do a very deep community needs assessment. And it looks at, we do focus groups and we do surveys and we really look at data deeply to see what's happening in our community and see trends. You know, we see trends about what's happening. A number of years ago when there was so many foreclosures, we saw that coming because our data told us we're seeing more people walk in the door saying, I'm going to lose my house. So we started doing those kinds of programs to help people stabilize. Some we helped save their homes, some had to move on, and then we'd help them find the next step in life. So, you know, seeing those trends, and right now, what really terrifies me is the fact that rents are so high, people cannot afford them. And it's not just Lowell, it's the entire area. They're sky high. And people making, you know, minimum wage or even above minimum wage cannot sustain the level of that the rents are currently. So we are seeing a growing homeless crisis in both families and in single individuals.
And prices are exponential everywhere, you know. It's not just housing too. So then you look at, you know, utilities and grocery shopping and just everything. It's
And right
Unbelievable.
now, as we speak, people are losing some of their food benefits because the
Yeah.
additional money that was through SNAP
Mhm.
and that was during COVID and extended out, that's going away.
Yeah.
Some of the eviction prevention programs
Mhm.
are being reduced in the amount of money that people can get and in the service itself. So there isn't the same safety net that's been
Yeah.
there. And I just worry so much about that because people are struggling. They're working hard,
Mhm.
and yet they're not making enough to cover all those basic costs.
It's great having you in the role that you're in because you're relatable. You've been through these
Right,
things.
right. You feel it and you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Uh, to have people looking at you thinking, "Oh boy,
Mhm.
how am I going to get food on the table this week, or
Yeah.
how am I going to pay childcare or the rent or mortgage?"
Mhm.
And for kids and families, having a stable place to live is one of the underpinnings of a healthy family, right?
Absolutely.
Or a healthy individual.
Yeah.
How do you do anything else if you are so worried or unstably housed that it
Mhm.
could go away at any moment?
And really, that's a basic need.
It is. It is. It's really, in our there are so many, nuances to it. There hasn't been enough housing production for years, and that's really impacted Massachusetts severely.
So, I think we've already touched upon this, but for those of you who don't know about CTI, a little bit about your organization. So we talked about some of your programs, but you have so many other programs.
Right. And, we are a community action agency, and that means we're a catalyst for social change and that we are, coming from the Great Society, the war on poverty,
Mhm.
and the civil rights movement. We have values deeply embedded. So we're a mission-driven organization, and that really, we try to make sure everyone who works for the organization completely understands
Yeah.
that. And because when you understand it, I think you know why we do the work we do. So we do housing programs, we do early education and care programs, fuel assistance, WIC, financial assistance. Our
Mhm.
center is up and running and doing great things. We help people with loans if they need to modify their home because of a disability. So there's all kinds of things that we're doing every day to try to make our community stronger. And we work closely with the city, and we're proud to be partners with not only the city of Lowell, but the surrounding towns and all the communities that we work in. We work in about 70 communities in
Incredible.
Middlesex and Essex County.
Wow. Amazing. What's one lesson your job has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life?
First, to say you don't know,
Yeah,
right?
that's a great,
I
that's a
think
great
to
point.
admit you don't know something, but you can find out,
Yeah.
right? Because there's always somebody who knows or someplace you can go, and to really say, okay, that didn't work. Sometimes you
Mhm.
have to say, this isn't working the way we thought, and we've got to kind of regroup and go forward. And I think when you can do that, um, people trust you, right? Because they know
Yes.
that you're going to be honest about things,
Yep.
and that to me, being honest and transparent as a leader, I think, are the greatest gifts a
Mhm.
leader can give to an organization or to a community because we have to work together,
Yep.
right? And our work is always collaborative. We're working with Middlesex Community College and with the city of Lowell and with the chamber and all of you. And we're so grateful that you've been working with us on the homeless issue for a very long time now, right? To really try to find solutions. And I think when you are honest and transparent and solutions oriented,
Yes.
you really bring people together.
Yeah, not everybody does that. Does that. Not everybody does that. Not everybody does that. I mean, you have to put aside pride, ego, all of those
Right,
things.
right. It's about really seeing the vision of where you want to go and then
Mhm.
figuring out how to get there, and all that stuff that gets in the way, you have to just let go, right?
Absolutely.
You don't need credit, or you just need to get the work done.
Absolutely.
And I think Lowell and how we all work together is a good example of
Yes,
that, right?
totally agree. We
Mhm.
just want to come to whatever solution or work together to find whatever we need to get
Right.
done.
That's right.
And that's it. And it doesn't matter who's getting the credit or not getting the credit. It's
That's
just
right.
what are we going to do together?
I think it's been such a good place to do this work because my colleagues across the state don't all have the same experience. I can call on so many people when I need help, and they're there,
Yeah,
right?
that's great.
I didn't have one person we asked to join us on our Monday meetings to talk about homelessness. Not one person said no. And that's amazing to me.
Yeah, it's great. We're very fortunate. Anything else you'd like the viewers to know about CTI?
Well, I think that the things we're working on right now in our early education and care is really adding a strong behavioral health component, because of COVID, we've seen our children and our families really have many more issues, from isolation, from disruption in education. So we've been working really hard at that. We're looking for funding to open a behavioral health center at our biggest childcare center, which will serve all of our childcare programs.
Great.
It's the Rita O'Brien D Behavioral Health Center. Rita is a board member who is in her 90s and was a teacher with us and has, I think, 56 continuous years of service with community teamwork.
Wow, that's amazing.
From working to being on our policy council, to being on our board and on our executive committee. And Rita is another person who really helped influence me, and helped me be successful, honestly. She's an amazing woman.
Wow.
Yes. She and her colleague in Tewksbury, Marie Sweeney,
I love Marie.
Are my go-to people. I'll tell you, for a lot of things. Marie has been a political mentor. Really, when I need some, like, this is a sticky situation, right? Tell me the politics of this. She's always one who has a good answer for me.
That's good.
As a board member.
It's good to have somebody that can help you navigate that sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You think about all the people who've helped, us on our way up, and it's amazing, from board members to community members to family. We need all of that. We all need all of that.
Absolutely.
But I think the other thing we're doing a lot of work on right now, family homelessness is a real challenge. Community Teamwork is right now running the largest congregate shelter in the state. It's at a motel in Methuen. And motels, as we all know, are not places we choose to bring up our families. The fact is, we are having a really hard time finding apartments to move those people to, because there are so few vacancies and the costs are very high. So that's a real challenge we're working closely with the Commonwealth on, and we're bringing as many resources as we can to those families. We're putting a play center, and basketball hoops at the motel and things. We have the entire motel. So really trying to make it a place that is safe and feels, like a temporary home.
Yeah,
and
like
that's a pretty challenge. That's exactly. And as you know, in the challenge with individual homelessness in this area is also growing, and a challenge that Community Teamwork has been taking on with partners, and we're going to keep working on. We're just going to keep working on it. People need a place to live. And if I sound like a broken record, it's because I am. And I will continue to say that. We'll work with anybody who has ideas and thoughts about creating more housing that can really help people have a safe and respectful place to live.
She genuinely means that. You will work with anybody
you
will listen to anybody, hear any ideas. And you've been doing the work. It's hard. And thank you for doing that.
Well, it's important work, and I appreciate all the help we've had and cooperation from so many organizations.
Finally. What's one question you wish I'd asked you, and how would you have answered it?
Oh, let me see.
I'm like, okay, now you get to go.
What is one question? That one is stumping me.
Maybe about your grandkids?
Oh, that's right, Danielle.
Every time I see you talk about your grandkids.
I know. I am the proud, I've mentioned my 4 sons. I have 8 grandchildren, and they are the light of my life. I adore them all. They range from age 11 to 1. And tomorrow I'm headed to San Antonio to visit 2 of them. And they're
the youngest on the youngest.
The youngest one
right?
he turned 1 on St. Patrick's Day. He's going to have quite a birthday when he gets older.
Seriously, everybody's going to be celebrating him.
That's right. And his sister is 4. She'll be 5 in the fall. So they're moving up this way. They're coming back to New Jersey.
They are? Oh,
New Jersey,
you must be
closer.
so happy. Way closer. You can drive there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I am. I have so much fun with them. You know, I
Awesome.
love taking them places, and we're usually outside,
Yeah.
you know, at the beach or taking a walk or, you know, at a playground or, you know, I took
Excellent.
the oldest one into to see Six in Boston for her Christmas
Oh,
present.
how
And we had a blast. So I
great.
get to do all the things
Yes. The
again
fun stuff.
and the
Yeah.
fun stuff
Yes.
and not have all the responsibilities.
Yes.
So it's
All that
awesome
pressure.
being a grandmother. I love
Oh,
it.
that's wonderful.
Yes.
I'll have a wonderful trip.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to
great.
it.
Awesome.
I'll be up bright and early tomorrow at the
Yes.
airport. So
Great.
it's great.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. This was so much fun.
Well, thank you, Danielle, and thank you for doing this. I think the more people know about all of the city organizations and area organizations and businesses and how we all work together, the better.
Yeah,
So-
and the people behind the organizations.
Right,
It's so
right.
important. You know, we can learn so much more about each other
That's
that
right.
way.
That's right. And, you know, we all will call on each other, and I think that's
Absolutely.
awesome. So I appreciate the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I love the work I do. Again, I'm one of those fortunate people who wakes up every day and loves what I do. So
I
it's
know
great.
people think we're crazy. You like to go to work.
I
I'm
know.
like,
I
love
skip
it.
down the street on Monday.
You do, and I've
I really
seen you
do.
literally skipping down the street, usually singing, Danielle.
Yeah, a time or two I have done that. Thank you all for tuning in to the latest episode of Lowell Leaders. We'll be back again soon. Thanks so much.